Live from Leadfeather Studios, it's the most controversial film podcast on the air. I Don't Give a Flick!
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Don't Give a Flick. I am your host with the most, the man with the plan, the man who needs no introduction but insists on having one. Anyway, your favorite person to ever listen to, Gary Elmore. And joining me...
Yes, and I'm his annoying sidekick, Johnny Blackburn. I like to sing all the time.
Oh my God, it's going to be one of those episodes because we're talking about a really fun and exciting topic tonight. We're not going to get too serious like we did in last week's episode where it was more insightful and research-based. So, invited to the podcast this week, we've got our favorite guest who actually couldn't make it. So instead we got Ian Webb, who is pretty good in his own right. No, Ian is the host of the brand new up-and-coming, not out quite yet, podcast called Cult and Trash Horror Movie Grind. You might know him from his former podcast and Facebook group, Movies So Bad They're Good, Midnight Cult Classics in Camp. Ian, thanks so much for joining us, man. It's been a minute.
If you are blue and you don't know what to listen to, why don't you go where movie banter sits? I don't give a flick.
Yeah, baby. I like that. Okay. Gary, know how we were talking about a new intro song? That's it. Boom. Ian, we're signing you to a record label.
Sweet. Yeah, we'll take that, copy that in post, put it at the very beginning.
No, we're not going to fix it in post. God damn it, Ian, we're not fixing it in post. Son of a bitch.
We fix everything in post, Johnny. What are you talking about?
I will kill you. I will literally stop you in your tracks. Also, first time joining us on our podcast, we're doing a little bit of a crossover here. We've got two current contributors to Ian's podcast. We've got B-Dubs. B, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited that the crossover between Marvel and DC is happening. And wrong podcast. Never mind.
That's right. Oh, okay. I see. Disney is not sponsoring us, so we are fucked. Okay.
No, but Corona is.
Corona is, and brought to you by our
Corona beer.
Brought to you by our sponsors, Corona Beer, and we want to emphasize the beer portion so there is no confusion with other people listening out there. But anywho, we've also got Tony Vespe, local Texas-based actor and another contributor to Ian's podcast. Tony, so happy to join us.
Howdy, folks. Yeah, howdy. It's a pleasure to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller. Just wanted to, weigh in on the debate. And you know what? I think there should be more violins on television.
Absolutely.
This is going to be one of those nights.
Hell
Johnny.
Yeah. Thank you, Quentin Tarantino.
Sorry. Violence? Oh, I thought we were talking about violins. My bad.
Violins. Yeah, violins are great. It would be great if more...
We call them fiddles down here.
To the first movie we're going to talk about, Psycho.
That would be fitting. So let's take a second. I do want to go ahead and give a quick introduction for Bree and Tony. Ian, we'll get to your latest updates in a second. Bree, give us a little background on yourself. How long you've been a cult and horror movie buff? How long you've loved film? What projects you're currently involved with? By all means, take the stage.
Oh, for sure. I don't own my own podcast. Instead, I am on Ian's. That is pretty much my one and only project. I won't say it takes up too much of my time, but I am extremely happy when he has me. Otherwise, excuse me. I just got back from Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, which I may or may not bring up some of the movies that were hosted there. It was a blast. I had a lot of fun. And I would hopefully recommend it to everybody who has never been.
Perfect. It's Gary and I actually went there a couple of years ago when we did a Southeast trip, and we certainly were geeking out when we got to Harry Potter World. That is for fucking sure.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what badass rides they added. Do they still have the T2 Judgment Day ride? Is that still one of their immersive experiences?
No, I have no idea what's replaced that. They've taken out like a lot of the classic ones like Jaws. They took that out, took out Earthquake, took out Twister. Added a lot of cool new rides, though. One of them being a Velocicoaster, based off the wildly popular Jurassic World. A lot of fun. And then another Harry Potter thing, Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure. I may get crucified for this. I'm not a Harry Potter fan, but I will say,
get out of here.
I know. I'm so sorry. But Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure is a lot of fun for sure.
Okay. Yeah, we got to ride that too. I would certainly agree. Well, we're certainly happy to have you on the show. I know we've talked about it before, and I'm glad we were finally able to make it happen. So welcome, Tony. Let's jump over to you. What are you working on, man? Are you currently acting in any projects or anything like that, or?
Well, I did the voice of a demon in a movie coming out, and I don't know if there's a release date for it yet, but it's supposed to be like early next year, coming out for Shudder, a movie called Sorry About the Demon.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a kind of a horror comedy.
Yeah.
And I played the voice of the demon who possesses a bunch of people, and that was a lot of fun. And I got to work with somebody I worked with a bunch of times, Emily Higgins, she's kind of like a local like horror wunderkind kind of. She made a splash like way back in the day because she made a full-length zombie movie when she was like 12 years old.
Wow.
And we met during that, and I'm kind of like her Bruce Campbell to her Sam Raimi. I kind of show up in most of her movies.
Okay. Is it as good as Swamp Zombies 2, or?
I haven't seen Swamp Zombies 2. I've only heard about Swamp Zombies 2 but I hear it's great. It's probably better than I would imagine. Swamp Zombies 2 is a little more competent. We shot on like a home video camera and used like like a computer microphone with like a paint roller attached to it to do sound. So I'm sure they're a little better than us.
I'm sorry. on my old podcast, the Movie So Bad They're Good one, we covered another movie that Tony was in, reviewed that one, My Girlfriend.
That is true. It's not a scary movie, but it's scary how stupid it is.
So Ian, what's the inside scoop on what happened to bring about the end of Movies So Bad They're Good?
Well,
was there like some infighting, some drama? Was somebody dating somebody else? I mean, what happened there? People want to know.
I mean, yeah, there were a couple of people who were killed, but that doesn't really have anything to do with it. What really happened was, well, actually, no. So I had another recurring contributor, Martin, who he's actually making a documentary about Movies So Bad They're Good. It's in the works right now. However, he linked up with some people on a YouTube channel called Infamous Horror, and they are coming out with a bunch of shows, actually. Many different podcasts. Like there's one about women in horror, and that's all that's about. There's one that's top 666. I guess that's a top 10 list or 666th list. But anyway, there's lots of shows, and they actually approached me and said, "Hey, we like what you're doing with this thing. Would you like to do a show, but this is just for like horror stuff?" And so I said, I sold out real quick, and I was like, hell yeah. But I'm bringing these folks with me who are on the podcast. So we've done a few episodes so far, but it hasn't actually dropped yet. Jonny is on an episode. Gary, I'd like to bring you on it too, whenever you get a chance.
Sure, yeah, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much it's the same thing, but I'm just selling out.
Yeah. Okay, so Movies So Bad They're Good was destroyed by greed and hubris.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a
Sorry,
tale as old as time,
that.
really.
My bad.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
You say it's a tale as old as time?
Yeah. Song as old as rhyme.
Okay. All right. Beauty and the Beast. Thank you very much. Gary, as much as I enjoy Beauty and the Beast, we're not talking about Disney tonight. Okay. What are we talking about, Gary? Do you know? You know what we're talking about?
You said we were talking about horrible films, so I thought Disney would have a couple of them, with at least the Star Wars franchise.
I mean, not Hercules, though. No,
never Hercules. That's got to be like the third best Disney movie of all time.
Well, it's the best Disney movie of all time, but, that's neither here nor there.
Well,
No, it is. But okay. We're going to move on. We're actually talking about in favor and in honor of the month of October, the month of fright. We're going to get into horror subgenres tonight. I'm really excited for this one because we all can agree that we love horror movies, but in particular, there are specific genres we probably prefer as opposed to others. So we're going to get into that right now. To start us off, though, I do want to jump into everybody's top horror film of all time. This can either be the horror film that you find yourself watching consistently, religiously over and over again, what you might think has the best script, what you think is the scariest. It's really up to your discretion. We don't care. We're not going to judge. We might judge, but we won't talk about it on air. So let's jump over to Gary. Gary, I do want to know, what is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Well, horror is not my favorite genre,
Sure.
but I do have a number of movies there that I like about it.
Just one.
My favorite.
I'm going to say just one. Gun to your head. Go ahead. Just prefacing.
Yeah, gun to my head. My favorite horror movie would be The Evil Dead, which is a classic Sam Raimi movie. And it was remade recently, but it was not as good as the original, of course. And it's basically the story of. They also made a musical of it, which captures it really well. But it's a story of 5 college kids that go out to a cabin in the woods in the middle of nowhere, and as so often happens, they read from an ancient grimoire and unleash a demon or ancient demons that proceed to make their vacation not as fun as it might have otherwise been. And it's all about their struggle for trying to survive and overcome. And the movie is like 50 years old, but I won't spoil it. So if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend watching it.
Okay. I might check it out. I've never heard of it before, and I don't know who Sam Raimi is, but
it does have Bruce Campbell, which is all you need.
Bruce Campbell. I know who he is.
And yeah. And so they made 3 of them. The third one was more comedic. And now they have a TV show, or I don't know if it's still going, but they had
went
one.
Off the air.
And then they've also made a couple of video games about it. So it's definitely one of the stronger cult classic movies.
Yeah.
I talked to Ian about it, but he's no longer part of that podcast, so there's no need to.
Did you know that Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell were actually friends in high school there, and somewhere in Michigan? I can't remember the exact city, but they had actually met there. And so it's funny we were talking with Polaris Banks, who's a local Austin filmmaker. He had gotten his film into South by, and we were talking with him about working with the same actor over and over again on your movies, especially from the very first, like from the onset. We were talking about Scorsese and De Niro, and think about just how lucky the two of them were, Bruce Campbell in particular, to find that diamond in the rough, like find that needle in a haystack so early in life and just be set and just be like, okay, I'm going to do this movie while I'm in college, while we're still in Michigan, and I'm just going to be set. And my entire career is going to be set from this one film. Nothing he ever did, I think, was ever up to that par, but we can debate that later.
Right. But like the car they used was actually Sam Raimi's actual car.
Yeah.
So
That's filming on a budget. No. For those of you that listened last week, we talked about making an indie film, being your own independent director, cutting corners and saving money where you could, penny pinching, doing one location, especially a location that you already have ownership over or you have permission to constantly use over and over again. Do that. For God's sake, do that. Don't waste money on jumping to locations. Anyways, that's another podcast for another day. Let's jump across the aisle. Bree, let's go to you. What is your favorite horror film of all time?
You brought me up because of penny pinching, and that's my entire personality. Perfect. Favorite horror movie?
Frugal.
Exactly. Thank you. Somebody gets it. So it's funny, when you introduced everybody, you brought up Ian, you brought up Tony, how we've all kind of been on the podcast together. And we've actually talked about this on Ian's last podcast. Favorite horror movie, hands down, is going to be The Thing. Of course, the 1980s version, John Carpenter. The original Among Us.
That's right. That's right. I would have, because you've talked about this. I did an episode on Ian's old podcast with you and another current contributor for us, Jacob Johnson, and we had talked about The Thing, and you had talked about it being your favorite. I had just when you had talked about it, I was like, oh, this is her favorite cult classic. It didn't register with me that was also your favorite horror. So that's pretty cool, and they can jump into both genres, and be like, oh, I love this one movie. It encompasses so much.
Exactly. I just won't shut up about it. And I think that's a nice thing too, is the fact that when we talk about cult, a lot of it is going to be horror, but that's going to be a subject for later on.
Absolutely. Tony, let's jump to you. What's your favorite horror or the one you find to be the best?
It's actually probably also The Thing, but just to keep it interesting, because it is neck and neck for me.
Okay.
I have like a horror like holy trinity, and they're all thes. Like they all are the blank. And I don't think there's I think there must be some sort of secret there. I don't know if horror, like the best horror movies are all the blank.
That's
I don't know if that's the secret. If there's a secret there, I don't understand. But I'm gonna say The Fly, the '80s The Fly, David Cronenberg's The Fly, because it is for a lot of the same reasons I love The Thing. And for one of the subgenres we will talk about, I'm a big fan of a body horror.
God damn it, Tony! Stop taking my talking points.
Nice. keep taking her talking points. Controversy. I love it.
You had the chance already. You went before him.
And both of them, both of them showcase that really well and in really beautiful ways. But The Fly, I love just how romantic it is and how disgusting it is at the same time. I love how you really care about these people. Like I just you really want to see him succeed, and then that makes everything that happens all the more tragic. And it's like a Greek tragedy. It really is like a grand epic tragedy, but with fly grossness in it. People puking at each other and melting their faces off and stuff. It's great.
What more could you want?
What did you think about The Fly 2?
I it's funny, when I was growing up, I saw The Fly when I was really young. I don't know, like in single digit age, like way too young. And I saw The Fly 2 a little later, and I was like, oh, it's not as good. And I still stand by it. It's not as good. But like the effects in it, some of the best fucking gore effects I ever seen in it. Like that dude getting his face melted off is a really notable one, where he's like screaming and ripping his face off. It's like, oh my god, it's like holy shit. And I do like Eric Stoltz in it. He's dude's underrated. I think he doesn't get enough credit.
Did you?
I think we can all agree we're happy though that he was not Marty McFly.
Oh my god! I was just so Gary. I know that you and I used to watch this. I don't know if you knew movies that made us. They just came out with season 2 a couple months ago and season 3 last week. So they added.
I didn't know they came out with season 3, but I did see season 2.
Okay, yeah. And I guess you had seen the Back to the Future one.
Dirty Dancing, huh? What an episode! If you haven't had a chance to see or movies that made us Dirty Dancing, watch that
episode actually. Yeah, I'm totally not trying to humble brag here, but my brother's a film critic, and I actually got to have dinner with Eric Stoltz once, like when I was yeah, not me and him, but it was like me, my brother, and him, and a few other people. And my brother asked him about this is like in the early 2000s or something like that, and I remember him telling us about him not getting them filming like half the fucking movie for Back to the Future and him being like fired from it. And he was pretty like, it was the early 2000s. This is 20 years after it happened. He was still pretty like I get it, but sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. They want something else, but kind of sucks.
It does indeed.
Yeah.
In the spirit of it, I don't mean to give free advertisement to Netflix, but in season 3 of movies they made us, they concentrate on primarily horror movies for season 3.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th, just saying. So putting it out there. Ian, I want to jump to you. What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Well, mine was already said, The Evil Dead is the best. In fact, if we wind the clocks back 1 year, exactly, we will have your last season's Halloween episode in which I mentioned Evil Dead about a dozen times.
You did.
Let's not wind the clocks back to 2020. I've had enough of 2020.
Yes. No more Hugh Downs and Barbara Walters.
To quote Tony, to make things more interesting, let's go with another one which I find equally neck and neck, and actually already mentioned earlier as well. Psycho.
Nice.
It's the best. It's the original. It's the first plot twist that like really. I mean, there might have been other plot twists before that.
Mainstream
maybe,
for sure. Mainstream, absolutely.
Yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan is really a lot like Alfred Hitchcock, isn't he?
Gary, I'm going to kill you so fast. I'm just going to drop you in your tracks. I'm so.
M. Night Shyamalan would like that comment a lot.
He probably would.
Yes, he would.
And everybody else hated it.
Nobody liked that.
Nobody.
No, I'm of course talking about the 1990s remake of Psycho, which is the exact same movie.
Oh my god!
Okay, goodbye, Ian. Goodbye. Thank you.
Goodbye to Ian. Ian's never coming back. Last episode ever.
How many times have you said that now?
Oh god, probably more times for Gary's brother, but yeah, probably every time you've been on.
But no, Psycho's great. It's very original. It's pretty terrifying. If you don't know the twist, like it keeps you guessing the whole way through.
Yeah, it does.
I think it's pretty immune from spoilers at this point.
60 years later.
Yeah,
shit more than that.
Yeah, 60, whatever.
Have you ever watched? Have you ever watched any of the Psycho sequels?
No.
I think I saw a third one.
They're actually
I saw something.
They're actually pretty entertaining, all of them in their own right, honestly. Like Psycho 2 is actually really, really good. It's about Norman Bates, and he like gets out of like the mental institution, and it's set, and it's Anthony. They get Anthony Perkins, and it's set later, and he's older, and he inherits the hotel, and he's like reformed essentially, and he's like just like a normal guy now, and he's just trying to make it, but like everybody is just such an asshole that he's just like makes it so hard for him not to murder everybody, and eventually he caves.
I can understand.
He's almost like gaslit into killing people again. It's really hard to explain, but like basically,
I think it's the one I saw actually.
It's fucking honestly kind of hilarious because the whole time it's like it's it's hard to explain, but it's actually really good. They're all really weird and like pretty good in their own right. Weirdly enough.
Yeah, okay. I'll have to take your word for on that one. I don't know if I'm gonna go and out of all the movies that I still need to see, I don't know if I'm gonna go watch those, but I will take your word for it.
Yeah.
Psycho 2 and 3,
and 4.
Psycho continues, and 4. Wow. Okay. God, it's turning into Hellraiser over here. Jesus, Leprechaun in space and shit.
Too furious.
I would have to say for mine, I mean, it's tough. It's always tough when somebody asks your favorite movie, favorite sitcom, and especially the genre that I love so much, just like horror. I mean, as classic, that's a good one, Ian, with Psycho. I mean, The Thing and is great. Evil Dead is certainly up there. It's a cult classic. For me, I'm gonna go the opposite direction. I'm gonna go a little more. When it came out, not mainstream. Now it is. But I'm going to go with a James Wan classic. I'm going to go with Insidious. That is still to this day. I love old school classic golden age horror. I do, from the 60s to pre-2000s. Awesome. But James Wan to me encompasses everything of what Alfred Hitchcock was doing back in the day, but didn't have the access to do. So with the effects, with the better quality of audio, of Foley that they could add into the film, with just the more advancements in technology we have. I would have loved to have seen Hitchcock work in today's day and age, as opposed to, 6 or so decades ago. That would have been a really interesting contrast to see how his style of directing would have changed. But I feel it would have been really similar to James Wan's. And I say that because, Gary and Ian, you guys know, whenever I talk about Juan, I got a huge man crush on him, and I always gush about him. He has the pop-up jump scares sometimes, but he really focuses on letting your imagination take hold, and he really focuses on using the soundtrack and sound effects, and using Foley to let your imagination run wild. And when you think it's going to pop up, it doesn't pop up. He holds you for another minute, and then when you think he's going to do it again, he holds you for another minute. And he's just so good at building the suspense. Very much like Carpenter. The Thing is another perfect example. I think the movies are a little different in their overall realm of things, but there are a lot of similarities. Insidious for me, I mean, it's one that I could watch over and over again, but I mean, I love The Conjuring 2. Not Conjuring 2, the first Conjuring as well. That would probably be mine, even though I'd still throw Psycho's a really good one, Ian. Babadook I would throw up there. I would still throw up the original Scream, and Scream 2. Oh God.
So is James Wan the new M. Night Shyamalan?
No, Bree, no. James Wan is the new Alfred Hitchcock. He is the new Alfred Hitchcock. He is not the new M. Night Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan wishes he could be James Wan.
We already said earlier, M. Night Shyamalan is also.
No, God damn it, you're all fired. Last episode for everybody. Last episode for everyone.
M. Night Shyamalan is the new M. Night
Gary,
Shyamalan.
shut your face.
He originated himself. Yeah.
Holy shit, I'm going to kill everybody on this podcast. This is the worst day
Which
of my
is what
life.
a horror podcast is all about.
Son of a bitch. This is the worst day of my life ever, Ian. And
This is
don't
the
you doubt
first
it.
day of your
So
life.
far.
This is the first day of my life. So far, good point, Bree. So far is the worst day of my life. Every day that I live is the worst day of my life. So tomorrow.
Just remember, Johnny, that today is the worst day you've ever had, but the best day you'll ever have.
God damn it.
That's
All right.
deep.
Moving on.
If it's the worst, we can go ahead and make this episode worse. So I mean, we could just.
We could just yell into the microphones insanely loud for an hour. And that would be the rest. Yeah,
Do
everybody
not
on
test me at the
3.
good time.
No, it's not. So let's go ahead and move on to horror subgenres. What we're going to do on this one is I'm going to go ahead and go through the list of the primarily 8 that I was able to come across. Okay, if anybody feels like adding some, that's fine. These were the ones that were most consistent on articles and what I could remember. And then we'll kind of just go through, give what movies would be in those categories and which ones jump out in our head and what we love and dislike about those. So we had.
Do we have Paranormal Romance?
I was thinking about making a joke about that, but no, Gary. Paranormal. For those of you that listened to us in season 1, we did the different subgenres of romance films, and Paranormal Romance was one that came up in multiple instances. Movies like Ghost, Warm Bodies. There's probably plenty of Twilight. Some people tried to throw out there. There's plenty. Yeah, I know. So the ones that we have up here. Did you say the Lighthouse?
The Lake House? Well,
the Lake House.
Yeah.
I thought you said Lighthouse. The one with Willem Dafoe. I was like, what? No.
Hey, that works.
There you go. So psychological horror, slasher, gore, body horror, monster horror, found footage, supernatural horror, and comedy horror. Okay, those are the ones that we went through originally. So going through these, I did kind of want to give everybody an opportunity to take a second to think. If you feel like researching online and Googling it, that's fine too. A movie or two that might fall into each of these categories. I will go ahead and start since I've obviously made the itinerary and already have a couple planned. The original one that starts us off here is, of course, going to be psychological horror. And I think this one you can throw maybe even into the psychological thriller realm. And I'll kind of leave that up to you guys and see what you think. But, oh, damn.
I mean, that's a pretty tight distinction, psychological horror and psychological thriller, isn't it?
Well,
you think so? Why so?
I mean, like, would you consider like Psycho to be psychological horror or psychological thriller? I mean, those are very, very close, don't you think?
I think the psychological horror aspect with Psycho comes into play because it's about essentially a serial killer or murder. If it was just about somebody fucking with your head and there's no risk of death, I don't know if I would put it in the horror category.
I don't know though, because I think it more has to do with, a lot of people debate whether or not Seven is like a horror movie.
Yeah, it's a good example.
It's a comedy.
Is Seven a psychological thriller? Or is it a psychological horror movie? Is like Identity, is that like a psychological horror movie or is that a psychological thriller? Is Silence of the Lambs is a big one. A lot of people don't consider that a horror movie, even though, I mean, Hannibal Lecter is undeniably a horror icon, right?
Sure.
But he's not even the bad guy in that movie. It's another thing that people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, but like, I would say that what distincts it from me, what makes the distinction for me is that, like, does it focus on like the horror of it, like the active horror of it, or does it focus on kind of the mystery about it? Seven to me is like a psychological thriller. Like that's like a detective movie with horror elements to it.
I'd agree. I don't think there's any moments really in Seven though where they attempt to try and jump scare you. They might try to shock you with like the what's in the box moment, but
There's a
not
couple.
scare you.
I'd say there's a couple. That's kind of what makes it a little confusing.
I'd,
like
say,
the part
I'd say
where-
they were more shocking as opposed to scary, and that would be what deviates for me to be less horror than psych thriller.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so we're agreeing that if it's a shocking movie, like that falls into the thriller category.
I would say like
And if
Psycho. Yeah,
That's a
like
thriller.
Psycho would be horror, I would say, because it's focusing on I mean, it's focusing on the you know the death and the gore of it. You know, it's focusing
Right.
on the shocking aspects of it. It's not really. I mean, there's a twist in it, but at the same time, it's not all about like what's going on, like trying to figure out what's going on. It's about kind of being like, oh, what's going to happen next? Oh my gosh, you know, kind of like that. You know,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you are kind of trying to figure out what's going on in it because you're like, who's he talking to? Like, what's going on?
That's true.
I don't know. I mean, I
If
can.
his mother is still in the house, who's in that grave?
And who was phone?
Exactly.
And who was phone?
Who was phone?
And why did they have a shot of a toilet? We will never know these
We
answers.
will never know.
That was
We will never
apparently
know
the most
these answers.
shocking- That was the first. I think I read that was like the first
Yeah.
The first toilet.
toilet
Scene.
in a movie. Yeah.
So if you know if Alfred Hitchcock was still alive making movies today, everybody would be like, nobody cares that there's a toilet there. Why are you doing it?
He's like, it's shocking.
But if he hadn't been there to make these movies in the 50s and 60s, we wouldn't have toilets in our movies today. So
That's true.
when you see a toilet in a movie, think Alfred
Thanks,
Hitchcock.
Alfred.
That's his contribution.
Thank you, Alfred. You're a good man. I miss
Yeah.
that man.
Oh, okay. So
So what falls
that answers that question.
right? So for the movies that might fall into psychological horror, I mean, Psycho, we could probably all agree would be thrown in there. I would say something like, if we're gonna go more recent, I would say The Strangers. I guess it's a home invasion, of course, and there is certainly the risk of death, but it's just one that fucks with your head. There's nothing paranormal about it. There's nothing religious or spiritual. There's none of those aspects to it. So I would throw The Strangers in there. That would be my pick. Ian, how about you?
I'm gonna go not as well known and a little bit older.
Yeah.
This is a movie in 1983, Videodrome,
Nice.
Okay,
by David Cronenberg.
nice.
I mentioned it in on this podcast before.
Mhm.
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's very well done. I wish it was more popular. It's the kind of movie that makes you yourself, the audience, doubt reality, because that's really what's going on in this movie. There's a lot of like, is this real?
Yeah.
Is this all in my head? Am I going crazy? And it makes the audience feel that way too. And that's when a movie can pull that off. That's real well.
Mhm.
I mean, that's really good.
You know that they're stepping up to the next level when that's accomplished. Absolutely. Tony, how about you? What would you throw into psychological horror?
Oh man, it would be my favorite. Probably would be Jacob's Ladder.
God.
Oh, we are just infamous for having people steal other people's answers.
It's
I love
just
it.
Tony.
Usually it's Jacob stealing your ideas, so it's
True,
a
but-
breath of fresh air that there's
Well,
new people.
Gary steals Neil's all the time, so that was the running joke. But I love that Tony stole Breeze. That's a new one, so fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, but no, I love Jacob's Ladder. That's definitely what I think of when I think of like great psychological horrors.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it's kind of like what you were saying, where you don't know what's real and what's not. It's just genuinely disturbing, also, but also not in a like a try-hardy edgelord way. It's like in a
Right.
very real, like and also it's the perfect example. But not every psychological horror movie has to do this, but the best ones, in my opinion, are the ones that just like are about people who are completely who are unreliable narrators who you can't really trust, and you don't know what's real and what's not, and who are suffering some kind of pain and trauma that are making. Like, I also really like, well, I'm not gonna say it in case somebody else has it, but there's a lot of my favorites are like that, where you're kind of you're discovering everything along with the main character. It's
Right.
a good mystery. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pure mind fuck. Absolutely. Bree, what about you? What falls into psychological horror?
It's a good thing. I always have a plan B prepared, of course. So instead of Jacob's Ladder, I'll bring up the movie Creep.
Nice.
It's actually pretty recent. I think it was like 2013, 2014. It definitely is a mind fuck in the fact. I'm sorry, am I allowed to swear? I probably should have asked.
Oh yeah, we have explicit content on here.
Oh, damn it, Lord. Okay.
Son of a bitch. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've already been swearing, and then I just now thought to ask.
Poopy cock. Yeah. No,
I thought it's really interesting the fact that you are guessing the motives behind. I mean, it's just pretty much like 3 characters total, and only one of them is really heard over a phone call. Otherwise, it's just 2 dudes. And you're wondering, like, what the hell is going on? You know, why is this dude approaching him for this movie? Oh, God, what the hell is going on? Oh, no. That sort of thing. So I thought it was a really interesting one. Maybe he, the director, is actually the new M. Night Shyamalan, the new Alfred Hitchcock. No, I'm just
no.
It'd be Alfred Hitchcock's grandson, I guess. At this
point. No, I thought that was a good movie. I really liked it. I thought Creep 2, the sequel, was also fantastic. One of the rare sequels that's like, okay, this is solid. I thoroughly enjoyed this.
This is why I love having you guys on, Ian too, but in an extension of Ian, you guys as well, because a lot of the choices you guys have are movies that most of our listeners have probably not heard of before. It's certainly not the mainstream movies, and people really just don't give those a chance very often, and it saddens me a lot because there's some that are just absolute gems, like Creep, like you're talking about. I've seen Creep, and it really was an absolute mindfuck, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Gary, how about you? What kind of falls into psychological horror for you?
I think for me, one I'd like to talk about would be like Fatal Attraction.
Okay.
Which,
all right.
That's a movie about a man who is unfaithful to his wife, and that turns out to be a very poor decision for him. She just really tries to start, killing him, like putting bunnies in the pot, and just really going crazy on that.
Going ham.
That's sort of interesting because that's more like, as opposed to just going out into the woods to like the Blair Witch Project does. It all takes place, in a much more common theme that everybody can kind of relate to, which I think is one of the essence of a psychological horror or thriller,
right?
Depending on what you want to call it.
Okay. So I think, with the psychological horror, we've also got a good mix, especially with Fatal Attraction, Gary, with the psychological thriller aspect too. And as we've talked about on many episodes, there's a ton of crossover with all of these genres. It's hard to depict a lot of times if it's one or the other. Yeah. It's a combo.
Yeah, I really, really hate the genre episodes.
Yeah. It's almost
you do this every time, Johnny.
I know, but people like it. Or so they say. Could be lying to me, then I'm fucked. Let's jump over to slasher really quick, which might. I won't go into my own personal opinion quite yet. So really quick though, for slasher films, can we all agree? And we'll see that the 80s were the best decade for slasher movies?
Absolutely.
I'd say so, yeah.
You really could have just stopped after decade.
Just the best decade, just the 80s in general, where most of us weren't really alive for more than a few years.
I don't know about that.
I wasn't alive.
Oh, you were born in 87. You were 3 when the decade ended. Shut up.
26, actually.
Okay, whatever. You're still 3. What, 4? You barely remember anything.
Oh, shit.
So, Tony, let's jump to you. What slasher film would be kind of an iconic or maybe a cult one that you would throw into this genre people should hear about?
Yeah, I mean, Christ. I mean, I'm not going to go into like my favorite because I mean, I don't know. You got your big obvious. That's where you get into your horror. A lot of horror icons are just straight slashers, right?
Sure.
So it'd be hard to you got to weigh on the Freddy or Jason debate. I could go on one of those, but I don't know. So if I had to go with one, I would just recommend. I don't know, one that is kind of not watched enough. I think is the Prowler. Is a really good
okay.
It's it's pretty basic plot. It's I barely remember. It's set on Veterans Day or something. It's a really random holiday slasher, and But what makes it kind of cool is that Tom Savini was kind of like really he was like kind of the head of, he was at the top of his game during this. And it features one of the classic head explosions in horror cinema. They did the good old, they just got a shotgun and like a real shotgun and just blew up a fake head, like they did in Scanners. They do one of those. Like the kills in this movie are just fucking raw and just so rough. It's just like, yeah. And so it's not my favorite slasher movie, but it is like that. Yeah, that's if you're looking for one that's not really talked about a lot. I used to say The Burning, but now that's got Harvey Weinstein all over it, I'm like, fuck that movie. But fuck The Burning. Go watch The Prowler instead, because if you're gonna watch a trashy horror movie, go watch The Prowler.
Absolutely.
A good slasher movie is just, you gotta have good kills and good, lots of really quality, effects.
Lots of teenagers having sex in the woods, right?
Yeah, there's not really a lot of woods fucking. It's a lot of like hotel fucking in this one.
Oh, in that one, I gotcha.
Also at a hotel, I think, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with the slasher one, and it's funny too, because gore, we talk about the crossovers again, gore and even bits and pieces of like body horror, those kind of all fade into each other. I guess in a lot of the slasher ones, do we agree? Do we see we don't really see a lot of blood and guts, it seems like, in the slasher ones. As we see blood, but we don't see intestines spilling out as much as we might in like torture porn or body horror. That's more of, I guess, a level up, a more intensity. I don't know. For me, I would have to say Scream would be the quintessential. If I was, they were like, select one slasher and recommend that to 500 people that have never seen a slasher film before. Even though there's a lot of classics I won't name because other people might, I would say Scream. It's also a good comedy horror slasher mix, but I love movies that play on tropes and they make fun of it, and it turns everything into a joke, and it just parodies it. And Scream just makes fun of almost all of them, and I love it for just that. Even if the cast disappeared after the movie was over, because how many of those people actually did a crap ton of stuff after the 90s and early 2000s? Not many. But I just love it. It's always got a special place in my heart, especially that opening fucking scene. Oh god. Anyways, Gary, how about you? What slasher movie would you recommend, or what do you think is kind of a classic slasher film that falls into that category?
Yeah, I agree that the slasher genre is sort of the bread and butter of any horror film. And for my money, Nightmare on Elm Street would probably be my favorite. I used to watch that. Yeah, I used to watch that movie. I've probably seen that movie, I don't know, 100 times. I used to watch it all the time as a kid.
Yeah. Only during Halloween, or was it like all year round? You would just kind of like Ghostbusters for you, like you would just watch it twice a day.
Yeah, it was kind of like Ghostbusters. I mean, it's I've seen it a whole lot, and just a real classic, simple story. Like, you've got these virile teens. I don't think any of them are in the woods, though.
No.
But it's whenever they go to sleep, so it's something you really can't fight against. So they're trying to drink coffee to stay awake, trying to talk to each other, and eventually sleep as death comes for us all. So they fall asleep, and then they're in Freddy's world.
Yeah, exactly. Ian, how about you? What falls into this category?
Well, I might as well jump on the main one train. And actually, I'm glad none of y'all have said this one yet, because this one is my favorite Friday the 13th franchise.
Nice. Now, is Jason? Is he your favorite horror antagonist?
Yeah, he's like the Terminator. He just does not stop. In fact, actually, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to go with the Terminator. Terminator is the best.
Best slasher.
It is a slasher because it's got all the elements of a slasher. You got this unstoppable murder machine that's going around killing one person at a time, up all the way until there's the final girl trope, and it's the best. So yeah, Terminator and Friday the 13th, Jason and Terminator, they're basically the same. So I like them both equally. So there you go.
Okay. And Bree, how about you?
Maybe this will be a controversial pick. Obviously, I agree. 80s slashers, best by far. But I'm going to bring up something a little more recent again. Like you, Johnny, I really like the satirical ones. I like having a laugh while watching people get like hacked to bits. Ian introduced me to this one, and I loved it. And it's called, oh yeah, you know exactly what's coming. Dude Bro Party Massacre 3.
Okay, never mind. That's not the one I was thinking. Never mind.
Oh wow, okay, never mind. Dude Bro Party Massacre 3. It plays a lot on the tropes of the 80s slashers, but it does not take itself seriously whatsoever. It's ridiculous. It's over the top. It's got a lot of elements. You got a masked person going around slaughtering a bunch of dudes in the woods who are wanting to have sex. Well, actually, I think one of them is having sex. So yeah, it's a good time. It's full of good laughs. I loved it.
Absolutely. So on to our next one, and I'll bring this up to the panel. Do we put the gore subgenre and the torture porn or body horror, do we put those in the same field, or are they separate?
I'd say separate for torture porn versus body horror.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
okay.
definitely.
All right. Okay. So let's jump right into gore then. And Ian, I'm going to jump back to you on this one. What's one that is kind of a classic or people need to be seeing?
There's an amazing movie out there. It's called Hobo with a Shotgun.
Yes, just blood for blood's sake. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. People getting shot point blank in the face with a shotgun by a hobo, and all he wanted was a lawnmower. But shit happens, and he ended up getting a shotgun, and he stops begging, demands change.
That's right.
He demands change.
Okay.
But also, just because I can, I'm going to throw in Mandy.
Hell yeah.
You're going to throw in Mandy for gore?
That's not really a gore movie.
I wouldn't say that's a gore movie.
I'm going to throw in You've Got Mail.
Throwing some ghosts.
Wouldn't call it a horror movie. That's like a supernatural thriller.
I would agree. I agree with Tony. That's a supernatural horror, if anything, or thrill. It's not really even a horror. Like, it's not scary at any point. Like,
I'm gonna go back to the hobo with a shotgun in that case.
I mean,
Mandy is fucking awesome. Though.
It's a good
I don't know
movie.
what you call.
Yeah, that's
Mandy is it's just like a acid trip of a movie.
And I have to bring that up every time I'm on the show too.
True, you do normally, so I appreciate you staying consistent. By the way, I did see Willy's Wonderland and thought that was just a delightful time for all. That was fucking hilarious. Anyways, I'll come back to myself later. Bree, let's go to you. What's a classic gore that everybody has to see? What can they not miss?
So for this one, I chose Cabin Fever, which is Eli Roth's
nice
big debut onto the scene. Pretty simple in the fact that it's a skin or flesh-eating virus, and then of course it wreaks havoc on a bunch of teens. I don't know what it is about teens dying in the woods, but it is absolutely delightful for moviegoers. So I watched that the first time. I was absolutely fucking grossed out. It's so gross, but it's very good. I would absolutely recommend it.
Oh, I love it when we can recommend really gory fucking movies and people don't judge us because they can't comment on it. It's not a live show. This is very important.
Exactly. It's not like my coworkers who are judging me.
You can leave a comment and then smash that like button, people. Thank you.
Smash that subscribe button, folks. Smash it. Just smash it real good. Punch it as hard as you can. Okay, just don't break your computer because then you wouldn't be able to listen to us anymore. Gary, how about you? What falls under the gore umbrella for you?
I'm going to put out one, a more recent one called Planet Terror. It was part of a double feature.
That's a good one.
It was directed by Robert Rodriguez and starring Quentin Tarantino for
I don't think it's
one scene.
Yeah.
You do get to see his whole dick melt off, so that's kind of interesting. It's just it's a bloody mess that is just very violent and pairs quite nicely with what's the car one? Death Proof.
Yeah.
I think that's very underrated. Planet Terror. It's
Yeah,
it's great.
Okay.
I love Grindhouse in general. I think both of them are kind of underrated. I get why people don't like Death Proof a lot, but I get it. But at the same time, I really, it's one of my favorite cinematic experiences like ever was seeing Grindhouse, like the double feature in theaters.
Mm-hmm. It was a very interesting concept that both of them put on together by making basically a 4-hour movie.
Yeah, and without Grindhouse, we wouldn't have Machete or Hobo with a Shotgun.
That's true.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. The damn previews from commercials.
Yeah.
That's right. Tony, how about you? What falls under gore?
Man, I actually have it's funny. I kind of hate and love the genre because like I kind of hate torture porn. Like I don't love movies that are just violence for just violence, only violence. Right. But if you do it right, I think you produce some really great horror.
Absolutely.
But if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick Brain Dead.
Ooh,
nice.
nice.
That's
okay.
like when I think of just gore, like the funnest gory movie. Like that's what I think of. Just like motherfucker killing people with a lawnmower. You like killing the whole hall of zombies with a lawnmower. Peter Jackson just really showing off like all of his tricks that he learned, and making bad taste and all sorts of crazy.
That movie has the world record for the most amount of blood.
I mean, yeah,
well,
I was
actually, until the Evil Dead remake, the one that is hated in this chat, apparently.
I don't hate the remake, actually. I think it's okay. I don't think it's better or anything, but I think there's room for it. I think it's fine.
I think it's fun as a standalone.
That really had more blood?
Oh, yeah. It was like raining gallons of blood.
Yeah. There's a scene where it rains blood. I know that, but I don't know if it... Okay.
Yeah. Well, but it's by gallons, okay? We can afford more gallons now. You got to take it into inflation.
I think for this one, because when we're talking about torture porn, I think torture porn is one of those ones where it can, just torture porn by itself, can kind of jump between gore and body horror. I think that the body horror portion of torture porn is where they're experimenting on humans or animals, and then they create something new from that. And then there's the portion where they're just straight up mutilating people, and these people are trying to escape. So while we had already mentioned, Evil Dead kind of fits into both a little bit, I guess. So we've already talked about that, so I won't bring it up. But I would put Saw. I would put Saw into the gore category and not torture. Yeah, it's still a little torture porn, obviously. But for me, Saw is one of the better horror movies when it comes to being an actual just good story throughout the entire thing. You see minor character development, you see minor character arcs. They're not huge for everybody, at least, but you actually see a story that has a beginning, middle, and end, which is rare in a lot of horror films. And it's fun, but it's also you guys, well, at least Ian and Gary, you guys know that, with my checklist, coming down from everything from quality to production design to script writing, everything, Saw hits all those levels, but the effects in it are so realistic. And this is when did the first one come out? 2004 or something like that, 2005, somewhere around there. Yeah, something like that. And it's just so realistic. It's so like some gore films, it's kind of sophomoric how the blood and the guts look, and it's still funny, it's still entertaining, it's still cool. But with Saw, you actually, at least me, I rarely get queasy at the sight of gory films. But Saw was just so realistic with their SFX and makeup team. I just, hats off to them, man. I wish I should look up the name of the guy that was in charge of or the woman or whoever was in charge of their department. But I just absolutely love that. So Saw would be my recommendation.
I would say that Saw, though, they do have character arcs.
They do have, that's what I'm saying. That's why I love Saw, because they do.
In the first one, for sure. Yeah.
Probably just the first one. The third one too.
Well, which is it the fourth one that has the insurance guy and he gets melted by the acid thing from the stomach?
Was that the third or the fourth? No, the third one was where the guy is deciding if he's going to kill all the people that had to do with his son's death. Okay, so the fourth one, yeah, I think you're right. That's the fourth one. Yeah.
But I mean, like they generally do a good job of, with the protagonist, having them come to a realization of why they're a bad person, or and then try and change their ways.
Sure.
Sometimes not so successfully.
Right. Yeah, it depends. Every once in a while, you'll get that with a horror or a really cheesy rom-com or comedy, you'll get those the full character development. And Gary, you and I always talk about how much we love character development and world building. And in horror, it's harder to do that sometimes. There are a lot of great franchises that have done that, but for the most part, it seems to be lacking in the overall grand scheme of things in the horror genre, which is okay. That's not what it's known for. So let's jump over really quick to body horror. Okay, Tony, I'm gonna let you start us out on this one because I know you had brought up The Fly earlier, so that's a really good example. So I don't know if you want to stick to that or change it, but what do you think? What jumps out to you?
Well, I guess I could just stick with it because then I'd be taking two. So yeah, I could just expand on that because The Fly is David Cronenberg in general. I mean, he does body horror so well. He does it great in Videodrome. He does it great in The Fly. But The Fly, I mean, The Fly hits like so many. It's like what's great about The Fly is not just like the physical, like disgusting nature of it, I guess, that he goes into, but he also goes into like the way it deteriorates like your brain and it fucks with your thinking and it makes you like, it's, and I don't know, it's like the most fucked up part of the body horror in The Fly isn't even like to me anyway, isn't the physical. It is, that's all disgusting, like him turning into a fly, but it's like, where he's talking to Gina Davis and he's like, I had a dream I was a man and I liked it, but now the fly's awake and the dream is over. It's like, that's fucking disturbing, to just have this, just the idea of like witnessing yourself turn into like a monster, so right. It's pretty fucked up. I mean, it goes all the way back to like Kafka, like
Kafka-esque.
Yeah, for sure. And it's always been just really weird and creepy to me,
right.
To I don't know, there's always been something really fucking scary personally to me about just watching, yourself turn into something disgusting, and your fucking fingernails pop off and it's so fucked up. And I think it's just kind of an innate fear that nobody likes that. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Kind of cuts through a lot of bullshit because a lot of people aren't afraid of certain things, but everyone's afraid of that. Like no one wants that.
100%. And for those of our people listening that want us to clarify, because body horror is not one that's talked about quite as much in mainstream. Body horror is typically when they would take a human, for the most part, and transform their body into a creature or some being that's not human, even if they remain half human or a third human or whatever. Sometimes they combine multiple people together and create a superhuman, if you will. I'm sure someone is going to mention one of the movies I'm referencing here in a second, and that person might be my co-host, Gary. What do you think falls into the body horror category?
Well, you are correct, Johnny. I think the ultimate body horror movie is going to definitely be the Human Centipede, which is a beautiful tale of romance and love, and it's really when you get down to it, it's about recycling and protecting the natural environment. It's about ass to mouth. Let's just be honest. It's just German filth. No,
it's about going green, baby. You got to go green. You got to do it.
Or brown. Go brown. What can brown do for you?
Especially
the UPS commercial, the whole thing.
That's right. Oh God! It was like 30 something people or something in that warehouse that the guy sews together.
I think it's 12, but the whole movie is black and white, except for the poop.
It's way more than 12 too.
The third is like where it's like a whole prison of people.
Yeah,
I never saw the third.
They have the human. What is it, Gary? The caterpillar, where they cut the limbs off people in the third one.
Millipede or something
like that.
I would not recommend watching the third one. I wouldn't recommend watching any of these, but if you're a real sick, freaky person, you'll probably enjoy the first two. Basically it's this, in the first one, it's this doctor that captures three people, and tries to build a human centipede out of them by sewing the ass of one of them to the mouth of the other, and so you've got three people kind of chained up like that, and cuts their tendons so they can't stand up and run away, and it's just horribly graphic and disturbing. on every
We
level.
recommend watching these movies with other people so you can actively make fun of it or laugh at it so you don't feel like a freak of nature for watching it by yourself. But it's up to you.
Yeah,
we don't judge.
Yeah, don't watch it by yourself because that's weird. But if you have to watch it with more than one person.
Are there prerequisites to watching half of our films we're going to mention today?
For this one, I think you could watch Evil Dead or The Thing by yourself and not feel bad. But like this one, you're gonna want a buddy with you, somebody you feel real close to.
Okay, we'll take your word for it, Gary. Bree, why don't you weigh in on this one?
So normally I don't shut up about The Thing. It's an absolute masterpiece. I can go on and on forever. So instead, just to save time, I'm actually going to bring up a movie that is very heavily inspired by The Thing, and it's called The Void. Just like Tony said, it starts with it's going to be solid.
Yeah.
So it's very, very heavily inspired by The Thing. It uses practical effects, very small cast. I loved it. And oh God, the monster they make is absolutely grotesque. And as it's chasing people, absolutely horrifying. I loved it. And then just for Ian, just because Ian, I'm sorry for all the hell I've ever put you through. I'm going to bring up Color Out of Space.
Oh, nice. I didn't even think about that. That's a good one.
Oh, yeah,
yes, I had to. Since you brought up Mandy, I got to bring up my other Nick Cage, of course.
Not same director, but same production company.
Absolutely. Yeah. And of course, same beautiful actor man.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
Yeah, Color Out of Space is pretty good. So I'm going with Color Out of Space. No, actually, I'm going to go with a movie that actually Tony introduced me to on the old show, the movie by the Good and Cool Classics in Camp. Is going to be actually okay. So Johnny, you mentioned all the different types of body horror. Did you know that this subgenre has its own subgenre?
I'm sure it does. Can you please tell us all about it?
It is a body melt.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I can see that as a mean one.
Jesus Christ.
These movies are all about people like just melting through the whole movie. And the one I want to bring up is one that Tony and I discussed on the old show that he recommended called Street Trash.
Street Trash is awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's basically just a bunch of hobos. And what city was it? Was it New York? Yeah, I think it was New York. Yeah. And they just drink this old ass hooch that's like 80 years old, and their bodies either they melt all over the place or they explode. And the practical effects are just phenomenal.
Yeah, and they all melt in like rainbow ridiculous.
Yeah, each hobo has a different color.
Yeah, each hobo has their own little like color and like
weird colors too.
Like the big fat hobo explodes because he's fat, and then this older hobo melts into blue gunk, and one melts into yellowish orange gunk, and it's great.
Well, one guy's like sitting on a toilet, and he like flushes himself while he's
he melts into the toilet. And the effects are great,
body melt Street Trash is just it's the best. I just said Body Melt as another one, but
there is a movie called Body Melt. Yeah,
that's awesome. I need to see some body. I don't know if I've seen a Body Melt film before. Maybe I haven't forgot, but I have to watch one now. Ian, thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll probably do Street Trash again on this new show. And I would love to do that one.
Right on. Okay. Okay, well, for mine, God, there's a couple. Gary took Human Centipede, which is one that I was thinking about. Then I was thinking about the second one, which is hilarious, but it's more of a movie so bad it's good than a good movie. Then if you think about it too, the Alien franchise could be maybe body horror technically.
Yeah,
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, it's the egg and larvae are grown inside the human stomach, and then they use it as a host and explode and grow into this.
Violently explodes.
Yeah. Now I want to go actually opposite of all of this, and I don't want to go mainstream. I want to take a page from y'all's book, and I'm going to recommend Frankenhooker.
Yeah.
Because
Jesus, Johnny.
Yeah, baby.
That's true.
Frankenhooker, baby.
Yeah, I talked about that one on last year's Halloween episode too.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, did you? I forgot.
The best scene in that movie, I think we can all agree, is probably when all the hookers die in the room after they do the coke.
Oh yeah, they all spontaneously combust.
Yeah, the super crack.
Yeah.
You mean.
Super crack. That's
super,
right.
Super crack.
That's right. Frank, it's if you actually look technically, if you hats off to Mary Shelley, Frankenstein technically was body horror because she took all these pieces of dead people and slapped them together and created Frankenstein. Yeah, I mean Frankenhooker is essentially it's played off of Frankenstein, and they basically, this guy loses his wife and he combines all of these beautiful women he considers to be, he chooses supposed to choose their best features and then put them together in one perfect woman, and it ends up he ends up only being able to find hookers, kills the hookers, takes all their body parts, puts it together with like his girlfriend's head or something, or her face, and turns out his own female Frankenstein. It's a delightfully entertaining film. Honestly, my favorite part is when, I can't remember the antagonist in the film, but he comes into the garage at the end, and all of the extra pieces that he didn't use have formed into one giant monstrosity that climbs out of the walk-in freezer and just like grabs him and pulls him in and just rips him apart. It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, so you guys are rubbing off on me, man. I'm even on my own podcast, I'm getting out of the mainstream. I'm coming over to the dark side.
Cool. That's all I wanted.
That's right. So let's jump into monster horror. We're about halfway down our list right now, folks. So monster horror, Gary, I'm going to jump to you first on this one, because this one, once again, is one of the larger subgenres. This one will stem into multiple other subgenres, just like the slasher and psychological horror probably will. So Gary, what do you think people need to see when it comes to monster horror? What sticks out in your mind?
Monster horror generally involves some sort of a monster, and not supernatural or anything like that, but just sort of like this creature that's coming after you. And for my money, the best monster movie is probably Gremlins. And the second one is a comedy, but the first one is certainly not a comedy. And I think that it's just really well done. It's got little puppets that are just you first have the mogwais, which are the cute little ones, and then they get fed after midnight, and then they turn into horrendous creatures. And I like that the movie leaves open the interpretation of midnight for what. Is it midnight for where you're at locally, or is it Eastern Standard Time? Is it where does it come from? So Gremlins it's a fun movie. It's in a little town, and a lot of people die, so it's good.
Because a lot of people die. Perfect. I'm glad you had that.
Yeah.
Bree, how about you? What falls into this category?
This is really all encompassing of like what do we find as a monster, for sure. And like you said, it's going to be a lot of crossovers for sure. And maybe we can debate this one, maybe not. I really liked the movie of It Follows.
That's a good pick.
Whether it counts as technically a quote unquote monster or not.
It's just an STD.
Yeah, obviously, the whole allegory for STD,
right.
It's taken on all these different shapes, but the fact that, it's something, a creature following you, out to kill you, I thought it was really refreshing. I thought it was different. Soundtrack's fantastic. And there's some pretty good scares in there.
That the part where the giant guy just appears out of the hallway, that my girlfriend at the time screamed in my ear in a theater packed full of people.
I did the exact same, because that was the last thing I was expecting, was just a giant guy stepping out. And that's pretty much my experience at Halloween Horror Nights. But that's
Tony, how about you? What falls into that?
Well, I mean, okay. So I kind of want to. I'm a sucker for this movie called The Monster Squad, but it kind of doesn't count. Kind of doesn't count, is what we're talking about. But it's about monsters, okay? But I do love that movie. No, but I mean, that's the thing. Damn, It Follows is a good choice, because it technically is. Honestly, it's funny. The Thing is a really great monster movie. Really, when you think about it,
Yes.
you can see it as a monster movie because it's based on a '50s monster movie. So but no. Honestly, I don't know what so if I had to pick one, probably that. But if I'm going to talk about one, I'd want to talk about Pumpkinhead.
Okay.
Okay.
Good pick.
Pumpkinhead is like it doesn't get enough love. I love that movie. It's fucking directed by Stan Winston. I like that Stan Winston got to direct the movie, and he's like, I'm gonna make a hillbilly horror movie, like a hillbilly urban legend horror movie, starring Lance Henriksen. About it's just cool. And it's like honestly one of the coolest like modern movie monsters in like I don't know in history in history in general, but in modern history, like in the last 20 30 years. I guess it'd be 30 years, but yeah, Pumpkinhead is just such a great design, and I think that's what makes a good monster movie, is like a bitchin' monster with a good design and cool rules. Like that's Gremlins is a great. You were talking about Gremlins. That like I love. It can be cute and it can be scary, and that's perfect. Pumpkinhead isn't cute at all, but Pumpkinhead is a sympathetic, it's like the soul of a dead kid killing people, so it's like that's pretty dope. And the design is so fucking cool. It's ridiculous how cool it is.
We hope that you are enjoying this rousing episode of Let Feather Productions' I Don't Give a Flick. To help us bring you more of the content that you love, please consider following us on Patreon at patreon.com/letfeather. There are 3 tiers to choose from, with special and exclusive merchandise in our VIP level. We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming.
Yeah. Oh man. I would say for me, it's always a tough one. I think because to go ahead and find the difference between monster horror and some type of like demonic or witch possession type movie, we have to actually have established at some point what the monster is. And if it's not established, then that kind of makes it free range for the monster film. Makes it not a supernatural horror necessarily. So I would feel comfortable putting the Babadook into this one. They don't really ever explain what the Babadook is. It doesn't come around to possess them. We find out in the end, it actually comes around to just wear them down to the point that they go insane.
Yeah.
So the Babadook is like life, basically.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. But this thing, Mr. Babadook, that is frightening them, that is hunting them, will not stop, and we never get it's never established that it's a demon of some kind, or it's this old, there's no old folklore behind it. The only history we have on it is this creepy fucking book, children's book actually, that the son finds on the front doorstep before, like the morning before, and they read it, and then the Babadook comes into their life. And actually what I love about this, I always talk about how much I hate CGI, or how companies overuse it in film. The Babadook actually, with all of their things to showcase the monster, they use stop motion animation, they use old puppetry like cardboard cutouts. There's a point where you see the silhouette of the Babadook in the back of the kitchen, and then its claws spring out, and then the dark silhouette pushes towards the camera, and that's actually just a black plywood cutout of what the Babadook is supposed to look like. And in fact, when you see when it enters the mother's room and then crawls up onto the ceiling, that's stop motion animation. And I love how it's a movie post 2010, and it actually uses that as opposed to just going the CGI route and copying out. They found a creative way to do it, and I really appreciate that as a moviegoer and a film enthusiast. Babadook for me, absolutely. Ian, how about you?
Johnny, I'm glad you had me last, because mine is actually a message to everybody out there. You see, at the end of the day, when all is said and done, the real monster turns out to be people after all.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Every movie
ever. Wow, perfect, Ian. Great way to cop out. I love that.
Yeah.
Just you didn't have anything. I got it. No, I'm just kidding.
It's the news.
More specifically, Stephen King's hit.
Nice. Yeah, Pennywise is a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah, but also, the people.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what that movie's all about, is just how shitty, like, all the people outside of the Losers Club are. They're all just terrible people.
Well, okay, but you could argue that the reason that Derry is terrible is because of Pennywise. Pennywise is making the people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's a horrible clown that is terrifying, and so, he's a monster.
He's feeding off their fear.
Yeah. So you could go either way. That's what's so great about it. It's not only is it a scary clown monster, but it's also it's got everything in there. It's got the psychological, it's got the body horror, it's got everything. But it's pretty terrifying. I
will say that my favorite Universal movie monster is the creature from the Black Lagoon, though. I have a very
that's a good one.
The classic.
Why are we not best friends, Tony? Because I'm with you there.
This is my fave for sure. It's a little later than the other one, so a lot of people are like debatable on it. But I'm like, fuck you, it's totally one. Shut up.
Gary, you think you? I don't recall going to you.
I had Gremlins.
You started. I'm sorry. I thought Ian was the last one. Very good.
Yeah.
We'll fix it in post, Johnny. Don't worry.
Just leave it in. It's fine. Nobody cares. Let's jump over to. I'm just gonna say it. Probably my least favorite. I'm not gonna lie. It's in here, and I get it. There's a market for it for sure. It makes making horror movies cheap. In fact, I think this subgenre gave indie filmmakers the ability to make horror movies and making horror movies as their first film, because found footage, which is this subgenre, is just so much easier than all the rest. I'm not going to go into the examples because we'll probably all pick some. So Ian, I want to start with you on found footage. What do you? I'll give you first crack. What do you think falls into found footage?
And not your sex tape, Ian.
Yeah, no, I mean that's horrific. We all know that, but don't mention it.
That's body horror.
Just kidding. But seriously, Ian, go ahead. No more joking around.
The real reason why the last podcast ended.
Yeah. Oh no, I shouldn't have brought up his sex tape. He's really sensitive about it. I'm sorry.
Jeez.
God damn it.
I'm sorry. Well, I'm in it. I can talk about it.
Well, that's okay. As long as you're in it, then it makes it totally okay. Ian, are you with us still, man? Okay, I guess we are having technical difficulties for a moment with...
You really did scare him off.
Apparently. Way to go, Tony. Way to go.
At least this is the episode for it. I mean, we're talking all things scary.
I guess so. He couldn't handle the horror. It was too horrific. Bree, let's start with you then. What comes up for found footage for you?
I'm sorry, Johnny. I have debate with you in the fact that I love this genre. Like you said, it's kind of like a jumping, a debate. Haha. Anyway, so honestly, this is maybe a little personal, but my family on my mom's side tends to be ravaged by Alzheimer's and dementia. And I swear this has a purpose, in the fact that one of my favorite found footage horror movies is called The Taking of Deborah Logan. And so basically an old woman agrees to be documented. She has Alzheimer's. She agrees, to be interviewed. And then, of course, things start to go downhill because it's a horror movie. I thought it was really creative. It was perfectly paced. And again, it hits a little bit home to me in the fact it's a little bit scarier to be like, oh, crap, that's probably going to happen to me. But obviously, don't want to spoil it, but I'm probably not going to do all the stuff that she does. But yeah, definitely scary. Very well paced. I thought it was very creative. I liked it a lot.
Perfect. Okay. But to check that one out, I'm always perfectly happy to have my mind changed on any of them. And it's not like I haven't ever found a found footage movie that I haven't enjoyed. I just think it's the fastest and cheapest way to do it, and everybody and their brother. After it wasn't even. I won't mention one of them, but I'll go next. I'll take mine. I'll say the first Paranormal Activity. That's an easy one. I've got a couple others, but just because I'm going to talk about it. After Paranormal Activity came out in the late 2000s, early 2000 teens, whenever it was, everybody was coming out with them. I mean, they made 6 or 7 subsequent other Paranormal Activity films. Then they started doing all of the found footage films off Skype and Facebook Live and whatever. And it's just become an easy way for companies to turn a quick profit, spend $50,000 to $100,000 on film, and then everybody eats it up, even if it's a piece of crap. And I don't know, I've never really seen a found footage movie where I'm like, oh, that's so bad it's good. Most of the so bad it's good horror films that I've seen take a lot of craftsmanship. Even if they're horribly done, there's at least a lot of blood and guts. At least I have something there's cheesy dialogue. The found footage just kind of bores me. That's just me. But Paranormal Activity, I thought, did a really good job with it. That was, Jason Blum. That's how he started Blumhouse, was with that. The guy that was in charge of it, but I don't remember how he and Jason Blum met, but Blum was in an interview a while back talking about it. And he was saying that gave him the idea for Blumhouse because this guy was kind of a friend of his, and he just wanted the connections that Blum brought and some organization brought. So he's like, come on in, be executive and line producer and help me kind of get the day-to-day running with logistics, but leave the creativity to me and stay out of it. And Blum was like, okay, I mean, we're buddies. We know each other, so we'll leave it alone. And he left it alone. And he put his name on it, and Paranormal Activity exploded and made him fucking millions and paved the way for him to create his own company. And so hats off to Paranormal Activity, the first one. It did scare the crap out of me when I saw it. I saw a couple of the sequels. I didn't like them very much, but that's just me. I bring it up because it kind of paved the way for all of them. But
well, I think with both Paranormal Activity and like the Blair Witch Project, which are probably the two most famous found footage.
I was trying not to bring it up.
Well, I mean, like the problem is the first ones are made on this shoestring budget,
right,
and then like the second ones have so much more money behind them, and it just the stories, it doesn't work like to make Blair Witch 2 Book of Shadows or something.
Oh god, yeah,
that was horrible. That was bad.
Yeah, and spend millions of dollars on this, or Paranormal Activity 2, and how many did they make? 3? I don't know.
No, there's like 6. There's like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
It loses its je ne sais quoi, its essence of, it's just this like real low budget kind of thing that was found in somebody's camcorder.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So Gary, what would you recommend? Would yours be Blair Witch Project?
No, I'm gonna say Cloverfield.
Ooh, nice.
I'm gonna count that.
Yeah,
as
no, that's found footage. Absolutely.
And that's actually a pretty badass
it
movie.
Is.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily like horror like you think of like Jason and whatnot. It's kind of a monster movie, but I don't know a whole lot of found footage movies, and that one's pretty good. So Cloverfield. Also, it's kind of semi-sequel, Cloverfield Lane with John Goodman. John Goodman is fucking awesome as always. Phenomenal. He's one of our top 10 actors, I believe.
Yeah, he is. No, he was on the outside looking in. Wasn't he on the outside looking in?
No, you said it. You said it.
No. Actually, no, I take that back. You said that, and I was like, no, Gary, he's not up there. And we argued about it for like 2 hours. That was like our second episode ever. Tony, I'm going to jump to you. What do you think falls into this found footage category? What do people need to see?
Oh, man. Well, I have 2 in my mind. I don't know. So, like, I really like the VHS movies. Like, well, I like the first 2. The third one, and I haven't seen the new one, but I hear it kind of sucks. So the
second one was really good. Yeah,
I really like VHS 2. Yeah, VHS 2 is really good, and I think
the zombie thing.
Yeah, there's a zombie short that's really good in that one. That's actually made by the Blair Witch people, which is kind of cool. I like the one that's there's one that's made by the Jason Eisner, the guy who made Hole with Shotgun. He made one that's about an alien, like it's like a bunch of kids at a slumber party, but then aliens show up and try to abduct them, and that's like an awesome found footage. That's what I like about them, is that if one sucks, it's only like 20 minutes and then the next one starts. So it's like, I love anthology movies. But the other one I want to talk about is REC, R-E-C. I really like
the Spanish version.
Yeah. I don't like Quarantine a lot, but I saw it tripping acid once in the theater when I was like a teenager, And I remember being like, "This is the best fucking movie! Oh my god, it's so scary!" I saw it's like not tripping acid a couple days later. I brought people to see. I'm like, "Guys, we got to see. It's so scary, guys. You gotta watch it." And then I was like, "Oh, this movie kind of sucks." Oh man, it's not nearly as scary as I remember it. But yeah, Wreck, the original one, yeah, the Spanish one is fucking so scary. That's how you do it right. Is that when I point people to that, because I don't actually like found footage too much either. I think is really high highs. Like some of the scariest horror is found footage because it's like, holy shit, I'm there. But then some of the lowest lows for me are there as well, because it's just, I hate shaky cam. I hate like every shot should mean something. You know what I mean? Like I'm one of those people. So like I think it's like if you just a bunch of people running down the hallway and it's just like you know, it's just like shaky. It's like, okay, I'm not really, this is just okay. It's not even that I get motion sickness, I just get bored.
Haters.
What did
all
you
of
think
you.
about Hardcore Henry?
Say what?
What did you think about Hardcore Henry?
See, and that's the
Ooh,
thing.
that's a fun one.
I didn't hate that movie
I love
because it doesn't give me motion sickness. Exactly. I get people who are like, "Oh, I couldn't watch that movie." I'm like, I get that. I totally get that. But I think it's cool that it exists. It's like, yeah, I think it's like a fucking video game.
It's too long, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it works better as like a short. But yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. I think they should make a Doom movie like that.
Oh,
so
nice.
fun.
Yeah,
Did you say
that would be good.
Doom?
Like that's the only way to
Did you
do
say
it.
Doom?
Doom.
Oh, because I was like Dune and
Just a
that.
first person movie.
First person.
That'd be fucking weird.
We need to do an episode on Dune.
Just a whole Dune episode.
No, I don't. Nope,
Yes.
no, Ian, we're not fucking. No sting in a speedo. God damn it!
The new
Fucking
movie-
codpiece.
The new movie's
Fucking
coming out.
codpiece. Yeah, that's true, Gary. It's a good point. Maybe we'll do one on. It's coming out. That's right. It's coming out this Friday. Even though
I've already got tickets to 2 different screenings. I'm
so mad at you. That's awesome. I'm so jealous. It's gonna be so good.
You don't have to be jealous. You could have just bought tickets, and then you could have had tickets.
I mean, I'm gonna go see it, but I'm in LA right now, and all of the theaters are always packed. So I'm waiting for it to die down a little bit. So
yeah, it's sold out for like a week straight already. Yeah,
I'll wait until November. I'll give it a second. Yeah, and I don't know, but Ian, how about you? What kind of falls into found footage?
First of all, my bad. I don't know what happened, but like
okay,
everything just shut down on me, and it was at the worst possible time because y'all just roasted me, and then the whole thing just shut down, and I probably like looked like a bitch after that. But I assure you that's not what happened. But anyway, so it was actually good because I didn't want to go first. I actually wanted to go last because I have something way out of the box for this one. This is the one that I really enjoy, but it's technically not a horror found footage, but to me it is. There's a movie called Gang Tapes. I actually brought this up on a previous. Have you seen Gang Tapes?
I have seen Gang Tapes, actually.
I like
hate
it.
Gang Tapes. I fucking hate Gang Tapes. But continue. I haven't seen it in years. It might be better. You should talk about. I haven't. Wow, that's so funny. You bring up Gang Tapes. Yeah, bring it. Yeah, continue.
And I brought this up on this podcast before. It's technically a hood movie. It's just like
a horror movie for white people.
Yeah, there you go. So it's basically, it starts out with like this like totally white suburban family, and they're visiting Hollywood, and they have a little camcorder, but then they get carjacked, and as they're getting carjacked, the gangsters that take the car, they also take the camcorder, and the whole movie is just them like filming just various gangster activity, like cooking crack and robbing people and murdering people. So why am I saying that this is a horror one? Because it's nothing but horrific events. It actually is, just a horrible moment, scene by scene by scene. So it's pretty horrific, and I would say it's a horror movie and by that right. So and I mean, as you can see, there are, I guess, multiple different opinions on it. Like some people like it, some people hate it. But I really enjoy it. I think it was very well made. All the actors are actual ex-gang members, so it's pretty authentic. all the murders look like real murders, like people getting shot. Oh, there's a part where a guy hits another guy with like a lead pipe over the head, and that looks real. The whole thing, like beginning to end, you would think like, is this actually like legitimate like game footage? And that's what it looks like. And I definitely say that one. Game tapes.
Okay. All right, so let's jump over to supernatural horror. This is gonna be anything that encompasses spirits, ghosts and ghouls, witches, demons, religious films, anything like religious horror films, anything like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and let Tony start this one.
Oh no,
Tony,
skip me. You should skip me. I had one. I forgot what it was. You should come back to me.
That's all right. Who would like to go first?
Game tapes.
Go with gang tapes.
I'll go first.
All right, Ian, go ahead.
Okay, so this is one that's not very well known. I actually just found it myself very recently. Not sure if I would not be surprised if Tony had seen this one, but also at the same time, I've never once heard y'all mention this. So this is a movie by the Toby Hooper who did Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is a movie called Life Force. Have y'all seen this one?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I've seen Life Force. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, Life Force is pretty good. Not very well known. So this is basically some astronauts. They go. Halley's Comet comes over, and so they actually like. It's the closest Halley's Comet has ever been. So they actually go to Halley's Comet, and it turns out that it's actually not a comet. It's like a spaceship, like an alien spaceship with like dead aliens. This is just dead aliens, and but they see like naked human bodies, and they take them back, and then they like come alive as there's like this very hot naked woman, and she just starts making out with people randomly, but she's not really making out with them. She's actually sucking their life force out of them. All their life, and they turn into like mummies basically after that. But then they come alive and suck the life force out of other people. So it's actually like a zombie apocalypse, but instead of like your traditional zombies, you have just these like mummies pretty much sucking the life force out of each other and just multiplying. And it's pretty terrifying actually, and very well made. Like the cinematography and everything is really good. I'm surprised it's not as well known as some other movies.
Yeah,
when Toby Hooper hits, he hits, man.
Yeah, definitely.
It very well could be. It just had a low budget. Marketing budget wasn't there. They didn't have a great PR firm or something helping, and that really does suck with movies that are underrated, that are an underdog, that are a diamond in the rough. There's so much content out there today that you'll never see all of the great ones. There's probably a handful of movies, I would say, at this point that maybe never hit the festival circuit that are good enough to be, I don't know, maybe not up for an Oscar, but something close to that. And it's probably better than half the shit they're putting out today, anyways. I normally on this one, I would normally go with Insidious, my favorite, but since I've already mentioned that, I will give James Wan's other masterpiece, or his third masterpiece, the First Conjuring, which was the story of a family that moves into an old house they bought at auction at a major discount, and only to find out that it is actually possessed by the spirit of a demonic witch, basically, that sacrificed herself to Satan back in the 1800s, and it was her house, so she plagues the family. And it's the introduction into the Conjuring universe, which is one of my favorite film franchise universes in general, regardless of genre. I love the Warrens. As people, it was probably all a hoax. They were probably crooks. But outside of that, the story behind it, these are the guys that, for those of you that aren't familiar, these are the guys that went up against the Annabelle doll. These are the guys that did Amityville Horror. You have Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga give two outstanding performances in, as far as the horror genre goes, it's one of my favorite acted horror movies. If we're just talking horror genre, it just blows me away every time. The scene when they play hide and clap To this day, when I come back, whenever I come back to the house, Gary and I were roommates, obviously before I took this trip. But whenever I'd come home and I didn't know Gary was there, and he knew that I didn't know he was there, I would just hear in the background, and it would make the hair. Gary, and he's laughing because he knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's been a couple years, but for like months he would do that, and it scared the shit out of me every time. Anyways. Classic fucking film.
You can't have more than one masterpiece, though. Johnny.
Yes, you can.
I mean,
yes, you can. You can
no,
have multiple masterpieces. Multiple masterpieces, Gary.
Your magnum opus is your great work.
No, Gary.
You're
you
gonna
can
have
many.
Pick one.
No. He's too good.
Johnny,
Gary, he's too versatile. Okay, he's too versatile. You can't. Nobody puts James Wan in a corner. Nobody. Okay. James Wan is the man.
I'm just saying, you can only have one masterpiece.
Yeah.
It takes Wan to know Wan.
To know Wan. Gary, let's jump to Gary. Gary, what's your what do you think needs to be up there with supernatural horrors?
For me, the Frighteners, which was a 90s movie with Michael
That's
J.
a really
Fox.
good one. Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually like one of the few kind of horror movies that actually used to scare me quite a bit. And just, there was this guy, Michael J. Fox, who can see dead people. He can talk to dead people. And
wrong movie.
He's got like some spirit friends of his, and he's basically a shyster that tries to make money off of this. And he actually ends up meeting the ghost of like a serial killer that's like a real bad guy, and it's like squeezing people's hearts and killing them, which is just like, it's like, what do you do against a ghost? You can't really fight him. So he's got to like try and save the town that he's in, but they start thinking that he's responsible for these murders. So it's a really good supernatural horror movie in my opinion.
Okay, very good.
Peter Jackson at it again.
That's right, baby. That's right. Bree, how about you? What falls into this category for you?
So speaking of M. Night Shyamalan, no, I'm just kidding.
God damn it!
I couldn't decide between two. I'm really sorry. One's a classic, and I have to bring it up. I'm obligated because of one of my tattoos is The Shining. The classic tale of family taking a trip, and then of course things go to shit. Laden with ghosts, laden with madness, sense, horror, classic. Always. That should be on your bucket list for every season. And then as far as a new one, I've seen this a few times. I keep introducing it to people, and they're like, "Oh, this is so good." Is the Autopsy of Jane Doe? Really, really simple movie. It's very good. It's a mortician and his son. They're brought a body, the Jane Doe, and they just start slicing her open and trying to unravel who is this woman, how did she die, and things start to get really creepy. There's quite a few good scary scenes, not like necessarily jump scares, but build up of dread as it's just a man and his son doing an autopsy. I would very much recommend it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. It's really good.
So since you said that the Shining was like a family vacation gone wrong, do you think that would pair well with National Lampoon?
Yeah.
The Griswolds?
The Griswolds take a vacation to the Outlook Hotel. In fact, Dr. Sleep is based off of. No, just kidding. I'm trying to imagine Dr. Sleep with the Griswolds, and not sure how I feel about that now.
Okay.
Tony, round us out.
So my pick would probably be The Others. It's like
Nicole Kidman. That's a good one.
Yeah, it's like a movie. It's not. I don't know, because it's probably not my favorite supernatural movie. My favorite supernatural horror movie would probably be. I love Poltergeist so much. I have such a big soft spot in my heart for Poltergeist. But The Others is a movie that I feel like a lot of people don't talk about, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's seen it. But it is about a woman and her kids who live in a big old house that. But her kids can't see the sun, so they keep the curtains drawn all the time because they have a weird skin condition. And Nicole Kidman is just this very old school Victorian horror movie kind of, and And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to spoil it, but the twist is kind of what makes the movie so damn good because it turns out I don't want to spoil it, but oh my god,
it's been 20 years. You can spoil
Aren't
it.
they
It's
all
okay.
ghosts or
yeah,
something?
the big
They're all
twist is that basically the whole movie they think they're haunted by the ghosts, and it turns out that really they're ghosts and they're being haunted by living people
Yep.
who live in the house. And that's the big twist, and I think that's fucking genius.
It's a great fucking movie.
It's so good.
That's very M. Night Shyamalan-esque.
Except
Yeah.
You see, folks, at the end of the day, it's the people who are ghosts all along.
God damn it, Ian.
But who was fun?
But who was phone?
Who was gone? All right, let's jump into our last subgenre of the night, comedy horror. Okay, I think this one is pretty self-explanatory, and well, probably it won't encompass as much, pond hopping or genre hopping as monster horror or psych horror will, but it's pretty good size, I would say. So I'm going to start on this one. For me, would consider Cabin in the Woods to be a bit of a comedy horror. I think there's enough comedic aspects in it to cause it to be one. I mean, I know the entire thing is not comedy, but I think it's a good balance between the two, especially if you haven't seen any of these movies at this point, sorry guys, spoiler alert all around, you're just gonna have to live with it, or turn it off right now or skip ahead 5 minutes. When we find out that this is just an experiment, basically, or where they're paying homage to whatever gods are controlling that universe, when they're making the bets on which monster is going to be picked and who's going to win, like who's going to be killed first and all that, I just who is it, Bradley Whitford, I think, and oh dang it, what's the guy's name from Shape of Water, Richard Jenkins, their scenes were the ones that I looked forward to the most. Every time the two of them came on screen and just started, yammering at each other, I just lost it every single time. And there were parts of the movie that were kind of scary, but for the most part, it was really just entertaining as hell. Absolutely loved it. So that would be mine. So Ian, I'll throw to you. What kind of falls into comedy horror for you?
I think you already know, Johnny.
Probably, but you need to say it.
I mean, I think you could guess.
Is it the Evil Dead 3?
Is it Leprechaun?
No, it's not. It's a movie that we just covered on the new show very recently, last week. I mean, it hasn't come out yet, so you gotta wait like a month. But Psycho Goreman is a movie.
I was thinking Swamp Zombies 2 for a second, because I remember I didn't get to join you guys because I was on a commercial that day.
Yeah,
so
you were on Swamp Zombies 2, but yeah. No, Psycho Goreman, that is absolutely hilarious. It's a family, the most R-rated family film ever. It's actually, again, it fits all of the subgenres. It's super gory. But it's hilarious. It's actually the director, Steven Kostanski. He actually directed The Void that Bree talked about earlier, but that movie is not a horror or a comedy. This one is, and it's just beginning to end, just hilarious all the way through. Everybody should see it. It's fantastic. Bring your kids. I had a panel member in the panel who had kids. He said that he wanted to show it to his kids. It's actually really good. That is if they could handle gore, because it is very gory. But other than that, it's fine.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Gary.
For comedy, this one was tough for me because I had two honorable mentions. One of them was Ready or Not, which was this lady gets kind of trapped in a house and marries into this family that has to kill a new member. Just for the last scene when they're wondering, is this a real curse or is this a fake curse? And you have just the perfect length pause between when that question's asked and when it's answered. I won't spoil that. But for me, the number one comedy horror I think is probably going to be Ghostbusters.
Okay.
I've seen that movie many times. It's comedy, it's adventure, it's entrepreneurship, it's that spirit of building, and it's just a really well done, well paced, perfectly done movie that nails its comedy right on the head. Patwong!
Bree, how about you?
So this one kind of flew under the radar. I can't remember how I ended up hearing about this, but it's called The Wolf of Snow Hollow. I think I saw it on Amazon Prime, and so it's kind of more of a black humor horror movie, and it's about a small town where there's these crazy killings that appear to be a werewolf, but of course the cops are like, there's no such thing as werewolves. They're a bunch of bumbling idiots, and a bunch of people are dying. And so stress gets ladled onto him. These killings continue. Very dark, very comedic. It was something different in the fact that, it's not outright comedy. It's not going for like those, obvious laughs. Like you got to have that deadpan sense of humor. But something that again flew really under the radar. I think like it made less than $200,000 in the box office.
Wow.
Damn. Okay, I did not know that. Shit. All right, Tony, how about you?
I don't know. I think my, my favorite horror comedy, I'd be cheating because it's like, Young Frankenstein's probably my favorite horror comedy.
Yeah.
But I don't know, the one that pops into my brain, is like a penultimate one. It's probably Shaun of the Dead, Shaun of the Dead. It's so fucking well done. It's such a good zombie movie and a good comedy, and it also introduced obviously, Nick Frost and sound. I mean, didn't introduce them. They were around in Britain. They, if you watch Space shit, they were around. But to America, that was most there, and Edgar Wright. All three of their big introductions. One that's really big spot in my heart, though, that I want to talk about is Repossessed. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this movie. It's fucking ridiculous. I've
heard of it.
It is wacky. It is like kind of airplane style comedy, super screwball, like a lot of puns and shit. And it's basically a horror comedy sequel to The Exorcist, and it's about the Reagan from The Exorcist, like as a grown up lady, like with a family, and she gets repossessed essentially, and it's just fucking silly. Leslie Nielsen's in it, and Reagan is played by Linda Blair. Like Linda Blair is this, he comes back and plays her character from The Exorcist, and that's kind of what makes it so hilarious. Is that it's like, the girl from The Exorcist doing it, so it's like it's so stupid. It's so fucking stupid. But I love it. I love that movie so much. It's a really stupid ass theme song. Repossessed. Like it's like really silly. And horror comedies are just silly. Those are my favorites.
Yeah, and it's so awesome with horror being so entertaining that we have the ability to be able to combine comedy with it, and in some cases comedy and romance as well, and keep it entertaining, because it doesn't necessarily take itself too seriously all the time. There are certainly other genres like the drama genre in particular that makes it harder to combine a lot of those. So I kind of want to jumble the last portion around because we are running low on time here, but I think we've actually mentioned more cult classics throughout this entire episode than I have on any episode we've ever been on. Do you guys think that the horror genre lends itself to the most cult classics out of any genre in general? As opposed to action, as opposed to adventure, sci-fi, whatever.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay. I think I said that at the very beginning, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I would also have to agree to that, because we're talking about it. And one of the questions for those of you that obviously can't see this, our listeners, we had a question that said, which subgenre would be considered to have the most cult classics? Now we could get into that, but there's been so many named from the subgenres. I'm less confident on my original choice than I was at the beginning of this episode. So yeah, I originally was just going to venture a guess in the realm of gore or slasher. I was probably going to stick with slasher. But then the more we were talking about it, I was like, well, slasher films, a lot of the famous ones they're actually the most mainstream are slasher and supernatural horror. If you look at a lot of the classics with Shining, Exorcist, Poltergeist, or Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, Scream, whatever, all the ones you guys were naming, we named a bunch in every category. So I don't know if I'd feel confident enough to talk about it, to be quite honest. Does anybody have an opinion on that? I mean,
yeah,
Ian, go ahead.
Well, there's a subgenre that's not necessarily just horror, but there's
that has a lot of cult classics.
Well, I mean that's what Grindhouse is. Like Grindhouse is a subgenre of just films in its own. That I mean, some are horror, some are like blaxploitation, some are others. Other exploitation stuff. It's basically exploitation, but a lot of them is gore. Or horror. A lot of them is gore. And a lot of them we mentioned are so I definitely think that Grindhouse as a genre should be mentioned at least. But yeah, that's a big one right there.
Okay, to add as a subgenre. Okay, do you think that Grindhouse lends itself to have the most cult classics out of any? I mean,
that's all of like just if it's not a mainstream film, basically like it's Grindhouse is all cult. Like there's no mainstream.
Sure. Yeah, fair enough. It's all
except for Grindhouse itself, like the Tarantino and Rodriguez. That is mainstream, but that's not. I mean, Grindhouse has existed since the 70s. Right. So that's what that is cult classics. Maybe not all classics, but yeah, a bunch of cult films, that midnight movies that you'd see at like the drive-in or like I said, midnight theaters, and so there you go.
Okay. Fair enough. I don't know if I could I'll acquiesce to that. Okay. I don't know if I could compete with that one. Anybody else got an opinion on that one? Or is this did Ian sum it up for the entire group?
I think if we're sticking to just like straight horror genre, like Ian's got a great point. Like if we're talking straight Grindhouse, like whether any Grindhouse, that's out cult. But if we're sticking to like just straight horror subgenres, again, I know you guys might crucify me for this, but I really think the found footage lends itself to cult classics, and the fact a lot of people hate them, and the fact they're shaky, they make people motion sick. We can talk about like Paranormal Activity, Cloverfield, like the big name ones, but like Taking of Deborah Logan, Creep, Hell House LLC, GoGM Horror Asylum, like all these like not as well known ones that don't make a huge budget. Lake Mungo, like there's a lot of real hidden gems in there, and the fact they're first initially just blown off in the fact that they're found footage. But again, you find that right niche community and it'll just explode. Tony brought up another good one, Wreck. That's not going to be really popular with American audiences because it's a foreign film. And then it gets translated into quarantine and it's fucking terrible. But I really think found footage is a host to a really good amount of cult classics.
Okay. Absolutely. Yeah, I certainly could. I could certainly see where you're coming from with it. I don't know if I would agree that it's got the most. Maybe per capita it does. I just don't feel like there's as much found footage movies that have been made collectively as there have slasher or psych horror or even supernatural horror or monster horror for that matter, because it's relatively new.
Yeah,
sure, I can agree with that. Story. Sure, I could probably see that. And it's also newer too. To be fair, it's only been around for about 20 years.
Cannibal Holocaust. I mean, if we're going to factor that in, but
yeah. Yeah, exactly, the entire time, and a lot of these other ones have been around for decades before that. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Anybody else want to weigh in on this, or am I free to move on?
Oh, I mean, I think they synced it up pretty well. I would argue that slashers are probably the most likely to be cult classics, just because you can make them for so cheap and they can make so much money, and they have so much like staying power.
That's true. People do love blood and guts and people getting shot and
it's not
things of that nature.
Yeah, it's not necessarily my favorite of the genres, but it's definitely, I think, the one that kind of inspires the most, cult followings. People just like go apeshit for that. Even ones that I would argue aren't even really that great get attention because people just love a good slasher.
Yeah, good point. Gary, you want to weigh in anything? You're the only one that hasn't said anything.
Yeah, for me, I think slasher's the one that's definitely given to have the most cult following, probably because it's the largest of the genres. And then, basically you just need to, find a abandoned cabin in the woods and then, get 5 or 6 of your friends together. Some of them could be hot, that's good. And then just douse them in blood and start, filming. And you got yourself a slasher film. And, I think those really, they're very common, but I think that the good ones can really stick with you.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So let's jump into our last section of the night. Favorite and least favorite subgenres. Bree, I'll start with you since you had already mentioned, you'd already professed your love for the found footage area. What is your least favorite of these subgenres? What do you hate the most? What do you think is the kind of the cheapest way to go and is kind of a cop out?
Yeah, I love found footage, but my favorite is actually body horror.
It is. Oh, I thought you said found
for
footage
sure.
was your favorite.
I do have a love of found footage, but it's not my favorite. I'm in the same camp as Tony. Body horror is my favorite. But as far as my least favorite, I gotta go with gore, torture porn. I've admittedly never seen the Human Centipede or any of its sequels. I don't think I've seen anything past Saw 3. I haven't seen any new Eli Roth stuff. I don't know what it is. I can't stomach it. Like, I can see, the slashers and everything like that, but like the sake of human suffering, like prolonged focused on it, it just makes me just super uneasy. I don't know what it is. Like, okay, yeah, you see someone getting stabbed for 20 seconds. Okay. Then it goes on to the next victim. But like to watch like the emotions on their faces, like as their like fingernails are ripped off or something like that, I cannot do it. It's just physically disgusting to me. Nope.
Yeah, you certainly have to have a very sadistic and sick mind to enjoy torture porn, Gary.
Sorry, Gary. No offense to you. It's just not for me. I like body horror. I don't know what it is. Seeing aliens pop out of people, cool. Watching real life people get eaten alive, nope.
Yeah.
But,
okay.
No, there's that one scene in Green Inferno where they eat the human tongue. That was just that was a little, even for me, that was a little much. Even though my friend Gary and I have a mutual friend, Suzanne, and she always recommends for us to watch what is it? A Siberian film. A Siberian Siberian film. Yeah. And I know what it is. I've read up on it. I've seen the trailer for it, and I feel like at some point I do need to watch it because she's like, well, you're a wussy if you don't watch it, and I'm like, no one calls me a chicken. Nobody.
I have always wanted to see it. I have always wanted to see it, but she would never tell us which Siberian film it was. So I'm just like,
body horror.
It's just any of them.
The porn version is,
I guess.
Did you guys say you weren't sure what version? Oh, it's certainly body horror. It's certainly torture porn. Absolutely, 100%.
But no, the body horror, and I'm sure Tony can attest to this too. I think the reason why it's the best, and the fact is, not only is it kind of like gross and fun, but it's also like throughout time, it's been very representative of like the anxieties and the fears of the population. With Godzilla, being representing nuclear fear, the Blob and the stuff being fears about consumerism, Tetsuo the Iron Man. We're becoming so ingrained with technology. I really like how body horror throughout time has always represented our fears and anxieties, but then got creative and gross.
Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome how horror is able to just jump on all of these topics and encompass so much. Tony, let's jump to you since we were already mentioning what you were into. What's your favorite and least favorite for the subgenres?
Yeah, like she was saying, I definitely body horror is definitely my favorite because, like I said earlier, it's just definitely an innate fear for me. I also just have I think just personally, I've always had a big fear of, like pieces of me falling off. I don't like, I've lost teeth and it's always fucked with me. It's like never like that. Like, or like, having something growing on you. That's something we didn't talk about either. Is like, morphing into something is disgusting in its own right, and that's terrible. Like both metaphorically and physically.
Like a Wolfman kind of thing. Yeah, I guess we didn't even bring that up. That would have fit in there.
But that's terrifying. But even in the same level, it's like like having something growing on you, like fungus, like Creepshow, or like like The Last of Us, with all the fungus and zombies and shit growing fungus out of your face. Like that's just like. It's just to be able to witness yourself like breaking down. It's just like, yeah, I mean, it kind of like, at the end of the, I think a lot of people relate with that because of, even at a realer degree, like cancer or like any sort of disease that kind of just destroys somebody from the inside out. It's just like, it's a very human fear,
Yeah.
It's very, and I think that's the best kind of horror that kind of connects to you with the, fear is something everybody feels, animals and humans alike, so it's kind of something that brings us all together. Everybody's afraid of something. So
you want to bring the world together, peace and harmony, just get you some horror movies.
Yeah, just fear brings us all together. So I really like body horror just because I think everyone's got a body. No one wants to see it crumble, so who can't relate with that? And
so relatable.
Yeah, and it's the creative ways you can really fuck with people and really, because I'm not a huge fan of gore porn either. I don't know. I don't want to just do the same stuff, but yeah, I think gore porn is probably arguably my least favorite too. Even though I think I love great gore effects, though. I'm really all about, if you like, great gore effects are just yeah, I love it. I used to read Fangoria a lot just to see the fucked up dead pictures of all the fucked up effects and stuff, so I don't know, I would probably have to say, like, statistically, I don't know, like found footage, I probably only like a couple found footage movies, but yeah, so I'd probably have to go with found footage, probably my least favorite. I think when it's done right, it's really effective, though. That's the thing. I'm such a horror guy, so it's hard for me to pick my least favorite, but But I honestly think, though, I'd probably pick Supernatural because it's so overdone at this point.
Right.
And ghosts just have never scared me. Like, there's something about ghosts that don't scare. Honestly, yeah, I'd probably pick Supernatural because they don't scare me. Because I'm agnostic, so if I found out if ghosts were real, I'd be like, oh shit, all right, so afterlife exists. That would be like a very positive thing for me.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be very
that'd be a really neat thing to learn.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, Ian, how about you? What's your favorite and least favorite here?
I didn't think about this until he just mentioned it. Yeah, the supernatural ghost stuff. Yeah, I've never really cared about, and I wasn't going to say that until he just mentioned it. So yeah, the supernatural stuff. But what I was going to say is I'm not really a big fan of the monster stuff either. I have nothing against it. I don't know. I just don't really care as much. However, yeah, torture porn I'm not into at all either. So I'll say like those three things: the ghosts, the monsters I don't care about, and the torture porn I actually dislike. However, that being said, I love gore. Gore is my favorite, specifically the over top, cheesy, fun gore. Just like I said, a hobo with a shotgun. The body melt stuff. The movie I mentioned for that one. I keep remembering Body Melt, but that's not actually the one that I brought up. That's the one. Yeah,
I love that.
Just the fun shit that like you can laugh at. I don't know, for some reason I just love buckets of blood. Like we were talking about with Dead Alive.
Yeah,
and yeah, it's fun. So
what was it? The most blood ever used in a movie in history at the time? Yeah, right. God,
and Evil Dead too. There's the part with Ash who just shoots his severed hand that's trolling him, and then there's just buckets upon buckets of blood, and it's
trolling him.
I mean, that's what he was doing. That's what was happening.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun. So that's what I look forward to any sort of movie, no matter what the genre is, if it's fun. So that's why I have the So Bad Is Good podcasts.
That's right, man. That's right. Gary, how about you?
But no longer.
Well, no longer. But speaking of no longer,
that's why I said podcasts.
Gotcha. Plural, not singular. Speaking of no longer, Gary, since this is the last thing you'll ever say on this podcast, go ahead. Make it good.
My favorite genre is comedy horror. I like the mashup of something that should shock and terrify you, mixed up with something that'll make you laugh. Dracula Dead and Loving It, I think, is a great example. And it kind of just makes you feel, hopeful that no matter how bad things get, you can always find humor in it.
Right.
My least favorite is probably the torture, body horror, gore combo, and found footage. I'm not a real big fan of found footage. I think that's not so great. So yeah, a lot of the horror genres I don't really like.
Okay, even though out of all of those, the ones that you've watched the most recently are torture porn, like our body horror.
Yeah, that's the benefits of knowing you, Johnny.
That's right. I always introduce you to real fucked up things. For me, yeah, contrary to popular belief, it would not be body horror. Torture porn would not be my favorite. My favorite, honestly, would be supernatural horror. Probably, I do have a special place in my heart for slashers and gore. Don't get me wrong, but supernatural horror, my as far as just
Casper really gets you.
Yeah, going. I love Casper, man. He's such a friendly ghost. The thing for me is if you can take the genre out of the movie and it's still good, then I'm really gonna love it. If it can stand alone on all of the other aspects outside of just being part of that genre, I'm always going to be a big fan. And I think with
like Die Hard not being a Christmas,
it's not a Christmas movie. God, all right, we're not doing this. Okay. We are not doing this right now. So many episodes. Oh my God, we're not doing this. Oh God, somebody kill this guy. Somebody get him off my podcast, even though it's also his. All right, don't remind me. That's horrific to think I'm gonna have to spend the next couple of years doing this with you. That's my least favorite thing, Gary. That's my subgenre. Is that a subgenre? Yes. Honestly, The Shining, Conjuring, Insidious, Poltergeist, The Exorcist, a lot of what I consider to be the most classic horror films ever fall into the supernatural horror category. And so for me personally, it is overdone. I will 100% agree with you guys. It is certainly overdone. It's probably the most overdone out of all of them. But I just think it's the only subgenre that gives you the opportunity to be a good movie without the genre itself. And I'll tell you this, Gary, you and I rag on Ari Aster all the time. Neither of us were fans of Midsommar or Hereditary. Now, Hereditary scared the shit out of me. Don't get me wrong. It scared the living crap out of me. And that part I appreciate it for. And I think if they had added more connecting moments to show you what was going to happen in the last 45 minutes more than they did. I know there were a couple small ones, but I wanted them to be a little bigger. Had they done that, Hereditary would have immediately jumped into top 5 favorite horror films for me of all time because it had the ability to do that. Midsommar, I just thought was trash, but Hereditary I thought was really great. Same thing, script all around. Another thing that falls into the supernatural horror area. I love origin stories when it comes to religions and when it talks about folklore of demons and witches. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I was raised super Christian and then denounced it when I turned 18. I don't really know, but for me, that's just always been my favorite.
Denounced it. That's very strong, Johnny.
I'm not Christian anymore, so okay.
Like denounced. It's like this is wrong.
It is.
Just Gary, like nailing your thesis.
Oh my door. God! All right, not Martin Luther here, and we can get into a conversation about organized religion in a later episode. Not tonight because we're running out of time. God damn it, Gary! You always know how to get me going, man. I love it. Least
I denounce you.
I denounce you, horror. Least favorite's probably just going to be found footage. Even though I do appreciate a lot of the progressions that it's made over the last 20 years. Just personally, it's probably my least favorite. Yeah. So I'll let you guys if you want to when we wrap up. So for Tony and Bree, if you guys haven't listened to our episodes before, and since you haven't been on, I wasn't sure. if you knew or not, we let everybody take a second and recommend one movie for listeners to watch that week. We've given a lot of recommendations already tonight, so if you guys have an additional one that you think people need to know about, by all means, you're more than welcome to share it. And so I will turn it over to you guys. Ian, since you've done it before, I will let you go first. I'm sure you have one. You always got multiple, so I know I can count on you. So what are you recommending for our viewers to listen to this week or watch this week?
Okay, so again, something I haven't mentioned this movie particularly, but I have mentioned the filmmaker, who's Alejandro Jodorowsky, who I've brought up multiple episodes. He did Holy Mountain and El Topo, Father of the Midnight Movie, cult film extraordinaire. He was John Lennon's favorite filmmaker. He did a film in I think '89 called Santa Sangre, which is Spanish for the Holy Blood.
Right.
Holy Blood.
Tony did this episode with me. We did an episode together on the old show. We reviewed this. I think it's a very, very, very well made film. It's not many people have seen it. It's a very surreal psychological thriller. It's really, in fact, Jonny and Gary, I would like to bring y'all onto this new show to do this. You can see it on Tubi, so anybody can watch it.
Sure.
I would like to bring you guys onto my show and to let me know what you guys think about it. It starts out, it's a slow burn. It starts out very slow and not horror at all, but then the second half is pretty demented. And like I was saying about what was it that it's one of those movies that make you doubt your own reality. Like it's so psychological in that, you know, it's really fucked up. And I think anybody should see it. It's called Santa Sangre by Alejandro Jodorowsky. So that's the one.
Perfect. Okay. Bree, how about you?
So I recommended this actually recently in the movie So Bad They're Good Cult Classics and Camp Group. It seems like everybody who has seen it gave some pretty favorable reviews. I just watched it recently. It's by the folks who actually made VAS, which we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. And it's called Southbound. It's an anthology of people who are driving through the Mojave Desert and who are experiencing their own nightmares, if you will. I won't spoil anything. It is very good. The stories are connected. It may take a couple watches, but that would be my recommendation for the week.
Perfect. Okay, Tony?
Okay. I got one. I was going to talk about this earlier. As a olive branch to all the shit talking everybody, and including myself, is doing to kind of torture porn, gore hound kind of movies. I will say that one I do really like is called Inside, and it's a French movie from the late 2000s, I think, and it is extremely fucked up. But not in a excruciating no one's getting tortured. It's just a lot of people get real fucked up. But basically, it's about this woman who is very pregnant. She's extremely pregnant, on the eve of giving birth. She's due tomorrow, essentially, and she's waiting at home, essentially, and she kind of doesn't want the kid because of reasons. And this random lady is trying to break into her house, and she just keeps saying she wants her kid, she wants her baby, and the whole movie is just this lady trying to break in and steal this lady's baby out of her stomach, essentially. And there's a lot of people who get involved, like police officers and stuff, and this lady's relentless. And it gets really crazy. It gets very it's a rough watch, but it's also French, so it's very artsy.
love the French. Love those foreign films.
Well, French knows how to, this. I forget the name of the guy who made it, but he made other stuff too. That's pretty good. But came out after High Tension, which it's kind of like that, but less. I don't know. That movie's a lot. Inside's a lot too. It's a little more artsy, I suppose. A little more tolerable. It's a lot of filmmaking going on.
All right, Gary.
Well, for my money, you really can't have the Halloween holidays or go through
Oh, I
October
know it.
without
Thanks, Disney.
without watching a classic '90s
God
movie
damn it.
called Hocus Pocus.
Great fucking film.
Which is about
Not a horror movie.
It's kind of a horror.
It's not
movie.
kind of a horror movie, Gary.
It's got witches.
It's a children's movie.
What more do they explode at the
So
end.
is Psycho Gorman.
Yeah. So yeah.
All right.
Hocus Pocus is definitely my recommendation. And interesting. It took me like 25 years to figure this out, but the guy's name is Thackeray Banks. Not Zachary Banks.
They enunciate on the TH, I always felt. So way to go, you, for not listening closely enough. Good God.
Thank you. And Johnny, what is your favorite horror?
I'm just kidding. I didn't realize that until a couple years ago myself. Don't tell anybody though. Oh man, we didn't mention. I'm surprised you didn't mention Tucker and Dale versus Evil for comedy horror.
I did have that on my. I did have that on my.
I know how much you love that one, and I would recommend it. But because the new Candyman is coming out, I always like to tell people, see the original so you can see where the origin started, to see where their inspiration came from. And the original
Willy Wonka.
Yeah, no, okay. No. The original Candyman from whenever it was, the early 90s, late 80s, can't remember.
Yeah, Willy Wonka.
Can take a rainbow, dip it in it.
Anyways,
like real slow and
no,
minor.
Gary, the memorable line is "Be my victim." Okay, so just so you know, that's what it is. And it's
is it a Valentine movie?
No, it says "Be my victim," not "Be mine." I guess it is kind of but not a Valentine movie, but he is searching for. Well, he's searching for a victim.
That's that horror romance we were talking about.
That's right, the paranormal romance. Yeah. Oh God, see the original Candyman, guys. It's a fucking classic. Unfortunately, we are way over time here, so we're gonna go ahead and cut it off right now. But Ian, Tony, Bree, thank you guys so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure. You always can tell it was a good episode when we run overtime because the conversation was so stimulating. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Have you for thanking me.
And for I'm Johnny.
I'm Gary.
And Neil somewhere. We'll see you guys next week. Take it easy. Thank you for tuning in to Leadfeather Productions' podcast of I Don't Give a Flick. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast so that you never miss an episode. Podcasts are available on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and everywhere podcasts are hosted. I Don't Give a Flick is hosted and produced by Johnny Blackburn, Gary Elmore, and Neil Riley. Executive producer, Johnny Blackburn. Technical director, editor, and audio mixer, Gary Elmore. I Don't Give a Flick is a Leadfeather production. Copyright Leadfeather Productions 2021.